don't think though there's ever been an easier time to be successful.
No, I agree.
All you got to do is put your head down, shut up,
Hmm.
get to work,
Yeah.
grind it out, be grateful, build relationships, be a good
Yeah.
person. All these things that seem like common sense.
Yeah.
But very few people right now are willing to even do that.
Yeah. Well, I think that a lot of people want to do what's sexy instead of what maybe they're great at sometimes. Nobody wants to do blue collar stuff anymore. When the movers and the plumbers and all the people that you rely on to do all the shit that you don't want to do, when there's no more of them, like people are going to start thinking about this.
Dusty Black, welcome to the
Yes, sir.
podcast.
Thank you so much, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. How's it been going?
Been going well. Well, man, got a lot going on. Just with work and music and kids and but loving every minute of it, man.
You have an interesting story, which is one of the reasons I want to have you on the podcast, because you've been very successful as a businessman, and you're making a transition into music, and you've been working on that now for, gosh, as far as I remember, at least 3 years. Probably
That's
working on it before that.
Right at 3 years.
Yeah,
Is when we put out our first my first single. So
yeah. So, which will be unique as to how you handle your music career, because a lot of people getting into music don't have success in business, don't have a big business, multi-million-dollar business, and have that skill set that they can then transfer in to their music career. Talk about how you got started, and where you're from, and upbringing, those type of things.
yeah. So I grew up in kind of a little country town in the middle of nowhere in Arkansas, and my whole family is from. But my father was a musician, singer songwriter. My grandfather was a singer songwriter, and played some banjo for Johnny Cash and things like that. And I've growing up in a small town, I think there's as a young boy, since as long as I can remember, all I ever wanted to do was either play professional baseball or sing country music, and that's kind of what my dad did, and what his dad did, and we were very competitive natured, I would say, and so yeah, we that's always been in my blood, and I think that moving to Nashville about 8 years ago, after to open, new locations of my company, my father got sick and got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So we made the move to Nashville from California, and it was a it was a transition that I knew that I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to make it, because we were doing some things out in California that were very exciting with the moving company, like working with the show $1 Million Listing LA and Josh Altman and some of those folks out there, and with Black Tie, being kind of that luxury moving service, we were really getting a lot of branding and name recognition from the show, and from associating ourselves with those high end real estate, luxury real estate professionals, and high end just obviously real estate and projects that we were working on. So we moved to Nashville and 8 years ago, and opened some more locations of Black Tie, and when my father passed away a couple years ago, him and I got to spend his the last 5 years of his life here in Music City, and really surrounded by a lot of incredible musicians and songwriters, and it's it was something that we both kind of rekindled with, and we've always been country music lovers, but we really got to dive in like deeper than we'd ever had the opportunity to, with some of the people in town, when it comes to writing songs, or I worked with some of the other artists from a business perspective, and almost kind of mentored them as well, early in their career. So when I got the opportunity to to do it a couple of years ago, and after my father passed away, it really kind of taught me, how to it made me think about a lot of things. You know what I mean? And I think anytime somebody close to you, passes away, or you have a major change of events or experience like that in your life, it makes you think about things a little differently always. And my father passing, he worked his rear end off in his own moving company that I worked in since I was 9 years old, his whole life. And he was an aspiring musician and always wanted to do that. But he had kids, and he had to do what he had to do to make money to support his family rather than chase his dreams. And when he died, I kind of made that promise to him and myself that I was going to chase that dream for the both of us.
So where did you grow up though? Didn't you grow up in Memphis?
Yeah, I grew up between Arkansas and Memphis. So my parents were divorced when I was 2. My mom lived in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and my father eventually moved to Memphis during my junior high years or so.
What was it like, spending those years in Memphis in that music scene? It's a little different than Nashville. It's still a
Yeah,
really good scene.
yeah, very very different. But I mean, you grow up going to like BB King's and Isaac Hayes, and those are the kind of places that we would we'd go eat barbecue and go listen to blues on Sundays after church, or anytime we had friends and family around. And growing up, not having to, but going to Graceland, 57 times anytime
So you've
anytime
been to
somebody
Graceland,
comes
is what you're
in. Oh
saying.
yeah, I can be your tour guide if you'd like.
There you go. Um, you mentioned Memphis, but what about, are you a Memphis barbecue guy?
Yeah, big Memphis barbecue guy. I'm a big fan of dry rub.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think of the other styles?
I mean, I'm a barbecue fan. I think just in general, you know what I mean? You go up, like, they have the world barbecue cooking contest in Memphis that
Mhm.
we kind of like grew up going to. So we got to try barbecue from all over the world, really. And but I mean, I'm like a dry rub guy that with like some sauce I can dip in on the side. You know what I mean?
Same. Yeah. Dry rub's probably my favorite too,
Yeah.
but I also like to put sauce
Yeah.
on the dry rub,
Same.
and
Same.
that's the
Yeah.
combo
Yeah. Good. Yeah. It's
right
exactly.
there.
That's right. You're doing it right.
Yeah. So you played baseball
I did.
in junior high, high
Oh, I played
school.
baseball my whole life. So my father lived in Memphis, and I would come up in the summers and work for his moving company and play baseball with it's a affiliation called Memphis Travelers, Memphis Tigers, and it was kind of like a when you see the kids playing in the Little League World Series. I mean, it was the to the competitive natures. That's what we did. I mean, we traveled the summer and played 80, 90 ball games from February to September. So it was a lot of fun. And when I wasn't doing that during the summers, I was moving furniture for him and making some extra money. So it was a lot of work, and that's just kind of who my dad was. He grew up in a broken home, and one that he has 6 little sisters. So
Oh, wow.
when my
No
granddad,
brothers?
no brothers, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So my granddad left to pursue music. He kind of became the man of the house at an early age, and worked like a man. So that's how he taught me and my little brothers kind of that same work ethic. You know what I mean? And whether we liked it or not, because
Yeah,
we sure
right.
didn't like waking up early on the weekends and going and moving furniture for 8 to 10 hours, but we did. And I think it's those kind of things that we hate while we're when we're younger, and because we feel like it's just work and we're having to go through them. But what I didn't know is it was teaching me a lesson the whole way. You know what I
Sure.
mean? And that's what he knew that I didn't. And you know I think that that goes a long way, and it's hard to teach that nowadays. You know what I mean? There's a lot of this is like moving furniture. I know it sounds, kind of silly, but I mean, it's a trade, right? Like, it's a trade where, there's a lot of manual labor involved. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. There's a lot of ways you can get hurt. It's very hard on your body. And you're doing it most of the time in the spring and summer when it's, 100 degrees out. So, it's tough to try to, get great people that want to do that kind of work anymore.
I can imagine.
But at the same time, it's something that has to be done, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think we've come about as close as you can at Black Tie Moving to kind of solve that problem. You know what I mean? At least for the target, clientele that we serve.
What do you do to solve the problem?
When I first started Black Tie Moving 10 years ago, um, I had a move from, and I won't name any names over here, but I had a move with one of the largest moving companies in the nation at that point. And this we had two little girls at the time, and that were 1 and 3, and this is the first house that we built. We were very like particular about everything. We bought new furniture, and this was a big life experience for us, right? And supposed to, and all of that is really exciting. All when you buy a new house or build a new house, everything's like everybody's super excited all up until the time that you get the keys. And you're like, oh crap! Like now I have to move all this stuff, and now it's just going to be a huge like pain in my ass. You know what I mean?
Right.
And there's it's such a personal like process and experience. You know what I mean? Like somebody going through your drawers and packing all your most, prized possessions and valuable possessions. You know, you have to instill a lot of trust. And I think that, we were incredibly disappointed by the level of professionalism that the company had. They damaged about $30,000 worth of furniture and
Oh my gosh.
sent us, a check for like $360, to replace it. There was just a lot of smoke and mirrors, man. And I'm very much somebody that, I think that integrity and, is everything. And if I, obviously we hired this company, and there was a lot of, promises in the beginning, but then when, the process wasn't near what was described, and then, there was nobody, to be held accountable at the end. You know what I mean? So what we do is very hard. That's why it's so important to find, the best people that we can, recruit them and provide them with opportunity, not just a job. Right.
Right.
There's no way that I'm going to inspire anybody if I look to you and I said, hey Ed, you're a 21-year-old guy. You have the option to go into college or come to work for Black Tie Moving, right? And moving furniture for the rest of your life. Or, I mean, you're going to be like, absolutely not. Like
Yeah,
that's a no brainer, right? Number one was hard work, right? But why do kids go into the army, right? Because there's a higher purpose. There's a lot of hard work, and they know that they're going to have to go through boot camp and do the hardest of the work, in the beginning, until they learn their skills and that they need to move up in ranks, right? And that's kind of how we treat it at Black Tie. This is an opportunity. I have movers that started with me 10 years ago, that are partners in locations, across the country now. And, we promote within. We need great people. We need people that, have lived the ebbs and flows of our industry and of, this economy. And, it's, there's a lot of things, like I said, that can go wrong. And, we're not perfect by any means, and we still experience those problems. It's just at probably a 5%, rate that most of these other companies do. And, that's why we can afford to say, well, hey, look, if there's a problem, we're going to do whatever we can to make it right. And, you are the most important part of this whole process, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer. It's not, we stand with a name like Black Tie Moving. You can't just go out and like, like show up with a bunch of scrubs that don't know what they're doing and, break all your furniture, or that business concept and brand is not going to last very long.
Yeah.
You have to have the report card to kind of, back up your brand promises, and I feel like, we've done a pretty good job of that over the last 10 years in multiple markets. And it's exciting to, we grew really fast at first, and that growth is really exciting, but sometimes you got to kind of slow down a little bit and pay attention to the little things that is what, got you there. And that's all part of the process. Right. And that's all part, I mean, we've stumbled in that and tried to grow too fast, and we're like, whoa, like you know, do we want to be the biggest or do we want to be the best?
Sure.
And I think the answer is always for me is, I want us to be the best. And, I think that, big will come, once you do, serve people the right way and do it with integrity and high values. And, you really care and you're passionate about what you're doing. I mean,
Yeah.
we really take the stress out of one of them. They say that divorce and, and moving are the two most death, I'm sorry, death, divorce, and moving. That's the third most stressful thing that we do in life, right?
Hmm.
And especially with, customers that, you know, have the money to, for somebody else to move them. Not everybody has that, that ability. I certainly didn't when I was little. I mean, we grew up moving ourselves, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but if they do, I think, they should get what they pay for, and that process should, the stress and all the, all the hard work should kind of be eliminated for them, and that's what we work really hard to do.
Yeah. I know that you've been on the ink list a few times too. Like, how
Yes.
did that work out? What was the highest you got on there?
It was probably our third year. It gets harder and harder every year, right?
Hmm.
Because the level of growth is obviously much higher in the beginning. But I think it was like 242, maybe. It was somewhere around there. So we made the Inc. 500, and then we've made once, and then we've made the Inc. 5,000 six times.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So, year three, you made 240 something on the ink. I'm guessing though, you've been in business for 10 years, and I know, at least from my experience, that things don't look like you thought they would look when you started.
yeah.
You have goals and visions, and they might change a few, different times. You said you grew too fast. At what point did you see yourself growing too fast, and what was the catalyst to have you put on the brakes?
Yeah, I think that for me, we're always going to have, our KPIs, and one of our big KPIs, are our customer reviews and our feedback that we get directly from our customers, and I think that's the one way that whether you like it or not, that's how consumers are going to judge you,
Mhm.
is not based off of what you say, but based off what your customers are saying about you, and you know it was real easy to find those first 10 guys that threw, tuxedo t-shirts on and I was like renting trucks and in the beginning, um, because the mortgage crash hit and I really didn't know what I was going to do. So I kind of reverted back to, you know, everything I already know. Right.
Mhm.
Um, and growing up working for my dad in the moving industry, something that I hated and never thought, swore that I would never do again. I got hurt playing ball in high school, lost my college scholarships and my parents couldn't afford to send me, to college. So it was, you go to work, and I left home and went to Dallas and started leasing apartments for $9 an hour and $25 a lease. That was 20 years ago. So,
Oh, wow.
but I learned a little bit about real estate, and I watched a lot of people move. Right. Then I went from doing that to, doing mortgages with Countrywide Financial and Bank of America. And I did that for 8 years. But every job I've ever had, somebody's moving, if you think about it. So, it's, they look at this business and what's grown to today. And, we've done, 9 figures in revenue over the last 10 years, but really it was the 20 years before the 10 years that we opened,
Sure, yeah.
all the work and all the studying of the consumer and all of the studying and of the technical skill that really went into that as well. So, I think it's easy for most people, you know, they kind of looking, oh man, you got lucky, or, you must have had a lot of money when you started that. Nope. I started it with $5,000 in my pocket,
Yeah, I
and I
love it.
was renting trucks and built my own website, off, learned how to off Google, and, you just kind of improvise and do what you have to do. And that's where it started, you know what I mean? And
Was that in California?
that was in Dallas, Texas.
Dallas,
Yeah.
Texas. Okay.
And I mean, honestly, I can't sit here and say that I would ever have imagined that it would be what it is today, 10 years, later. That just, like, at that time that I started it, I wasn't thinking near that big. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I just wanted to be the biggest and best moving company in Dallas, Texas, right?
Mhm.
And then, success leaves clues, and we learned how to, not only, create a great consumer service in one market, but how to kind of clone that and model those practices and those strategies, not just of the technical skill, but also, just as important from a marketing perspective. And I think those, I was kind of a marketing guy, or when I got into the mortgage industry, it was, I was competing against mortgage bankers and brokers that had been working with the best real estate agents in town for 10 to 20 years.
Mhm.
So in 2010, like, Facebook for Business came out, I think 2009 maybe. And, this whole social media thing comes along, and people start utilizing social media to grow their businesses and expand their networks, right? So as I was the young guy that was getting into this, competitive, mortgage industry, um, I had to figure out a way that I was going to compete with, you know, with these other major mortgage bankers that they already had relationships with.
Mhm.
So I started teaching real estate agents how to grow their business from social media,
Okay.
and built like a pretty good network of agents. And a lot of the old agents, I mean, you gotta go. And I think that, whether it's, the branding, or your strategy, I mean, you've got to look for ways to add value in, uniquely to people. And
Mhm.
um I think that most people aren't very good at being a visionary. And I think, in that way, like,
Mhm.
they're so focused on what's going to make them happy or make them $1 million, that they don't realize is if they just tried to help, everybody around them make $1 million, then their money and time will come,
Yep.
um so, it's been a cool a cool ride. And I'm very blessed to have met, a lot of people I certainly, now consider like my family, that have, helped me run this business, for the last 10 years. There's no way that I would have ever been able to do any of this on my own. There's a lot of people to thank, and to give credit to.
Yeah.
I just, it was kind of a blessing and a God thing, and that these people came into my lives at these times. And I think we took the opportunity and we ran with it, and we did whatever we had to do to be successful.
Yeah. So when did you start doing the mortgages? What year was it? What year was that?
Man, so I started doing mortgage, I'm thinking 2005.
Okay. So 2005, the market was good. You had the subprime market that was going on too. I guess 2008 was the crash, right?
Yeah.
So you were kind of new into was it your own mortgage company or were you working for a
No, I
mortgage
was
company?
working for like Countrywide Home Loans, Bank of America. Yeah.
Okay, but you're still making these commissions,
Oh, it's
making good
crazy.
money.
Oh
You're
yeah.
crushing it.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's kind of like your own business in a way.
Yeah.
You gotta find the clients and
Sure.
you're getting your deals. Um, so that was 2005. 2008, the crash
Yeah.
happens. Uh, what were your thoughts? And I'm sure all of a sudden you just had everything just close.
Yeah, well, it's kind of wild because so whenever I mean, I had a high school degree, really a GED, if I'm being completely transparent, because I dropped out, like, a couple months before I graduated, because I was so pissed off that I got hurt playing ball and basically lost everything I'd been working for, my whole life, and from a baseball perspective. And you know, so this was really the only, like trade that I knew. And I grew up in a very blue collar home, so I was like, first, like, white collar guy in my family. And I really, I'd learned a lot, and had a lot of success in that industry. So when it kind of crashed, it was, I mean, it was kind of like an oh shit moment, like, and I just had my first daughter. And I didn't get out until like 2011. But it was scary, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think, um, you know, had, had I just went and had I taken that time and out of fear, just went and got like a salary mortgage. I mean, at that point I was like doing national sales training for Countrywide and Bank of America. And, if I could have got like a cush little salary job. Honestly, I thought I was. They sent me all over the country and had me train all of their mortgage loan officers when
Mhm.
Countrywide and Bank of America merged, right? Like Countrywide was known as like the mortgage experts.
That's
Bank
right.
of
Yeah.
America was known as like the banking experts.
I'm remembering.
So they sent me and 5 mortgage bankers, like some of the top mortgage bankers in the country, out to train all of their their loan officers, right, for Bank of
Mhm.
America. And so I got done with like a year and a half tour, and they were like, "Yeah, well, they didn't offer me the job that they had, kind of led me to believe that I would get." And um, so I got mad and left. But if they would have, that's probably where I'd have been for the rest of my life, because
Well,
I was making more money than I'd ever, I'd never make. I think, when you're graduating high school, man, if I just make $100,000 a year,
oh yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
remember that?
Oh yeah.
It's like, dude, I'm gonna be rich,
Yes.
and then you make 100,000, and if you're like me, and I was pretty young, and I just blew it all like an idiot, you know what I mean? And it was like, well, that's I guess that's why, there's a lot of you know there's a lot of people out there that just have this, I guess, mindset that even $1 million is like a lot of. I mean, 10% of Americans are millionaires now.
Yeah.
I mean, it like $1 million today is like, I feel like $100,000 20 years ago, or
It
like,
probably was with
yeah.
inflation. It
And it's
seems.
just like, geez, it's unreal.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that the 2008 crash pretty vividly. I was heavily invested in real estate in Nashville,
Mhm.
and the week that there was a week in August that I had 3 closings that all of a sudden didn't happen because they had changed the rules in
Yeah,
the mortgage lending.
yeah,
And I was like, "Whoa, what's about to happen right now?"
yeah,
And I was heavily invested in the city. We had projects that we were, building and working on and all those type of things.
yeah.
And it was brutal, man. It was brutal. I
All
remember
the
being in
guidelines changed,
all the guidelines changed. Yeah.
Yeah, there was I left there and actually started working for this company that was buying up the mortgage-backed securities from like Bank of America. And I mean, like 9 cents on the dollar, they would buy
Yeah.
like $10 million worth of the distressed assets and properties
Sure.
that they would just write off, right? They were just write-offs to the bank. And they would go and they crushed it, and they saw that opportunity in a downturn,
Sure.
and switch gears.
Well, like knowing what I know now, I mean, back then it was the first time I was a millionaire at 23, 24 years old. And a lot of the same story as you. Didn't have a wealthy family growing up and those type of things. And still had my gym, still had my clothing line, but I got into real estate.
Yeah.
And man, I lost it all.
Oof.
I kept the gym and the clothing line, but all my money was in
Yeah.
real estate. And my house foreclosed. I mean,
Mm.
it was just everything just dried up completely. And I was at that time, I might have been what, 26, 27.
Yeah.
It's you just don't know.
Yeah.
It was my first experience of losing everything.
Yep.
And it was really a humbling experience
It is.
because you know, then as it's happening, you're like, how can I ever recover from
Yeah,
this?
you're right.
And after that, I was like, you know what? I don't ever want to invest in real estate again. Like, I'll buy my house, but I'm not ever. And so Nashville has this giant boom. And I was doing short sales back in the
Yeah.
day, buying no money down,
Yep.
I had a real estate coaching program where I would teach people how to make money in real estate and those
Yeah.
type of things. I was like, never again. I don't want to. And now, you look at Nashville and it's, it
I
blew
know,
up, but
right?
that's okay. I was happy to focus on other things, of course.
Sure.
But, yeah, I remember those times, and the mortgage industry is really interesting
It is.
because it's good when it's good,
Yep.
but then you have a crash and that whole industry's wiped out. I have a buddy. I think he turned down between $800 and $900 million for his mortgage company
Holy cow.
right before this last crash.
Yeah.
The mortgage industry crashed about a year ago, year and a
Yeah.
half ago, and I mean, he's still doing great. But as far as
Sure.
he did good for a long time.
Yeah.
But just to think about that, like,
Oh, it's tough.
yeah,
It's really tough. Yeah, and I think that, there's gonna be obviously a big nutrition of real estate agents and, people that kind of came in on those highs and don't necessarily realize that it's ebbs and flows too. I mean, black tie, we follow the same trends, right? So we are primarily what we move homes, right? We move apartments, we do commercial stuff and offices and things like that. But when home sales are way down, I mean, our business is way down.
that
Obviously,
makes sense.
it trickles down. So.
Do you have any like contingency plans when that happens? Like we shift to more of this or anything
Man,
like that?
we've worked on a lot. We've actually been working on a lot for probably about the last year of just kind of ways that we can shift and make up for any, lost revenue because of dips in the market. But, the good thing is that people still have to move. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And sometimes um, they're not for great reasons, you know what I mean? And we hate to see that. But at the end of the day, it is a little bit of a saving grace for us, when, maybe home sales go down, you know what I mean? There are still moves being made, and it's more of a rental market, and things like that.
Yeah, I think now too, I'm sure since you've already been through the crash once, that was a bigger crash then than it is now, but are you buying up any real estate? Little distressed
No,
properties?
no, no, not right now. I need to, I mean, I always, I've been probably close to pulling the trigger, several times, but no, nothing in the last 3 years.
And I've been watching like the market right now, the interest rates obviously are up higher. But nobody wants to sell because, the average mortgage rate in the United States right now is below 4%
Yeah.
people holding their homes. So it's like, why would they sell when they would, be
Yeah.
going into something at a much higher interest rate? And but the properties that you see on the market, many of those are actually distressed.
Yeah.
And so I'm about to, go on a
Go on a
little
little
buying
little
spree.
shopping spree.
Yeah, I
There
think
you
so
go.
because what's going to happen? There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in
Yeah.
the world, and in some ways, I'm not very optimistic. But let's just say, in a year from now, they want what I think is probably going to happen is they want Biden to stay in office. They're going to get inflation under control. They're going to start dropping the interest rates, and when that
Yeah.
happens, you're going to have another boom.
Yeah.
It's kind
Mhm.
of I actually thought we'd see a bigger crash than we did
I agree
now,
with
but,
that.
like, now, like, it makes sense how it's at like, the math's like, "Oh, we're probably not
Yeah.
gonna see a giant collapse unless the whole system
Sure.
collapses." And so I think we're gonna see another boom, so I'm like, yeah, now between now and
Yeah.
the next 12 months, I'm
You're
gonna
you're
gobble some stuff
you're
up.
not wrong. You're not wrong about that.
I mean, what do you
Yeah.
think?
No, I think the same thing, man. I think that there's people this housing market that we've been in, even in Nashville, is unbelievable. I mean, I think my zip code like increased 42% or whatever,
Yeah.
like year over year for the last like several years, 2 or 3 years, and well, probably the last five. But it's wild. It almost reminds me of like the California, because I did mortgages nationwide.
Mhm.
So, we would do a lot of mortgages in California, and these that was they were these properties that were inflating, in value by 30 to 40, 50% per year.
Mhm.
And it's just like, that can't keep going.
It's gotta bust
Yeah, it's got to
eventually.
bust at some point. So, yeah, I don't know. It's really hard for me to guess. I think obviously we've had a really strong, at least here in Nashville, 5 years, and um, it's time for people to just kind of hunker down and stay put if they're in a good position. And I think this is definitely, we'll see some changes and shifts in the market, and there's going to be people that jump in there and aren't scared to go take a bite at it, and they're probably going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, every time that happens, it's people either act out of fear, or they go, where they kind of hunker down and don't do anything and stay put, or they take advantage of opportunities that they can find in the marketplace. And so I think it's always a good idea.
Yeah, I think they're about to pop off, and, we'll see what happens if, in a year they drop the interest rates and, we get another boom.
Yeah.
Eventually it's all gotta, the cycle has to run out.
Yep.
But, yeah, I think that's kinda it's an interesting one because I would have thought 2, 3 years ago when the whole COVID thing happened that we would have saw, I thought we were gonna see inflation faster because we were pumping so much money,
Yeah.
into the system. We saw it a little later. Um, and I also thought we were gonna see that the real estate market crash, but, we didn't see that. Now we kind of as the interest rates have gone up, we kinda see why people didn't wanna sell their homes. They have good, mortgage rates in place. But I also wonder about the AI running the stock market.
Mhm.
I mean, you have so many computer models right now that are on
Yeah.
the stock market, and it's like, I mean, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, by the way.
Sure. Yeah.
If it can figure out how to keep it up,
Yeah.
that's actually, that's not a bad thing. We're not crashing,
Sure.
but it's kind of uncharted territory.
Yeah. I think AI I mean, it's gonna change a lot of things, for our future and just a lot of ways that we do things. I mean, I'm trying to figure out, how we can change the moving industry, but with using AI and have for a little while. But it's I think it's gonna be, any time that we can have like kind of more checks and balances in a system and we're not completely relying on, um, I mean, computers are smarter than most. These ones today are obviously much smarter than a lot of us humans out there. So I think anytime we can rely on technology to help assist us, you know, um, in these ways, and I think is a good thing. But yeah, it's crazy what it's doing out there now. I mean, even like you know, the music industry, like it's like the songwriting, and it's not going to write full songs, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, but if somebody like I'm kind of like an idea guy in the room, and and a lot of times where idea guys are kind of filling people around them that can fill in the gaps, right?
Mhm.
And there's a lot of AI that can kind of do that now. You know what I mean? And it just kind of depends on how you use it and to its effectiveness or not. Yeah, it's just wild.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about, some of the older sci-fi type stuff that they were talking about, and all the things that are coming true,
Yep.
it'll be interesting to see how far it goes because the technology right now is going so fast in general. Like
Mhm.
once we get to general AI, which is like this I don't know, this it's just oneness of intelligence that's supposed to be so much smarter than any of us can even comprehend.
Yeah.
Like what's going to happen at that point,
Yeah.
And the other thing, you know, I think we're within 10 years of like having, the general AI, and
Yeah.
Elon Musk is working on Neuralink.
Yeah.
And it's interesting right now, like he's kind of leading the free speech.
Hmm.
Uh, he's like a thought leader in free speech right
Sure.
now, buying Twitter, saying the things that he says that are controversial, having, the government's against him now in the United States. A lot of governments are against him. Having the Starlink satellite system where he can, dictate whether Ukraine can attack Russia, and it's
Yeah.
it's
It's
it's a
wild.
wild position that he's in. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking he still has that Neuralink,
Mhm.
and Neuralink is a chip in our brain.
Yeah.
And that's, they're already in monkeys right now. I think they were just looking for human subjects for a phase one
Sure.
trial. I mean, what do you
Yeah.
think
I mean, I think
about all
that's
that coming on?
I think it's wild, man. I think that you never really can tell, and I don't think that we would be I never thought we would be this far in my lifetime, really. I mean, like you think about just 20 years ago, like how the cell phones we use and the computers we use. Now we're talking about monkeys with chips. I mean, it's just kind of wild to me, So I don't know, man. That stuff I kind of try to not think about it as much. If it's something I can't control, I'm like, hell, I'll let the folks out there that are way smarter than I am figure that
Yeah,
stuff
but you're
out.
pretty smart. You're pretty smart. We
Yeah.
need people like you thinking about it because I really do. I actually want people like you thinking about it
Yeah.
because I do think about it a lot.
Yeah.
And, I think that society we can't let this pass us up and
Sure.
not have
Yeah, not have a
yeah,
plan for it. I mean, I think
yeah,
it's gotta be highly regulated and like, you know, regardless, right? But, um, when you kinda lose faith in the regulators in general, that kinda gets scary, doesn't it? You know?
right.
And it's like, do I want, you know, Joe Biden being in control of a bunch of monkeys with chips in their head, much less, people? No. I think he
Maybe,
might need maybe he already has a chip in his head.
I was thinking maybe
Maybe
it'd
that's
give
what's
him some
wrong with
more
him.
energy. He'll stop falling asleep at
Yeah,
the
I mean,
stand,
that maybe that's what's
the
wrong with him. I
podium.
don't know. But, it does, yeah, kinda feels like, we've got just kind of a robot at the helm, already, don't we? So it's kind of, crazy to think about giving those people more power, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah, it's interesting too because I think where we're at in society, like at least uh my grandparents, our grandparents, maybe our parents are the last full humans,
mm,
which is
yeah,
really crazy to think about. We're going to be merging. We already are. I mean, we walk around everywhere with our cell phone. That's a part of us.
yeah.
If we don't have our cell phone, we're like, oh, where's our cell phone?
Yeah.
You know, it follows us
Everywhere, yeah.
wherever we go. They
Mhm.
can track. It's like the ultimate.
Yeah,
Um, it's like the ultimate tracking device.
sure.
We don't even think of it as that, but that's what it is.
Yep,
And so we're already kind of merging. Even my mom and dad, they're already kind of merging in a way with the computers and those type of things. But that next step, that's like within 10 years away, we got a lot of deciding to do.
for sure.
Because think about with your kids too. I mean, so you have two kids. You said 9 and 11,
Yep, 2 daughters.
two daughters, 9 and 11. Um, they're probably being raised a little different right now too because they have tablets, right?
Yep,
They have their iPhones.
yep.
And so that's we didn't grow up like that.
No,
Do you
no.
see a difference in the thought process that they're going through? Like what's fun to them versus what was fun to us growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I try to limit the devices and stuff like that as much as you can. I mean, um, they're made pretty clear that those are to communicate with, you know, me and their mom and the people, their dance teammates or my oldest is a dancer, my youngest is plays a lot of sports, so her little group chats with her teams and things like that. The way that they, communicate now, yeah, I think the access to information is kind of still like I'm gonna be the one controlling that as much as I can. Um, and I think I'm kind of a I'm a pretty protective dad. So like,
Yeah.
I mean, and I've got some pretty smart friends and friends, we share a lot of mutual friends that are kind of in the whole saving children world. So, and when they show you a little bit of, a piece of their world, man, it just makes you so much more protective and, you know, um, want to kind of put those layers of protection around the kids when it comes to devices or what who they're hanging out with. I mean, I think that the way me and you grew up, like we I walked home like probably a mile and a half, 2 miles from school, played with my neighborhood friends. Grew up with a single mom that was working a night job. So I mean, I kind of like, I'd cook myself dinner and, was very self-sufficient and while my mom went and worked and provided, put food on the table and did what she had to do. But my kids, it's hard to kind of compare because like my girls don't, they're not growing up anything like I did from, a financial position or from, um, you know, obviously a communication or, just our worlds were way different. But they, you know, they're a lot of the kids and, my oldest started middle school this year. And, I'd never really like, had to have like a boy, there's not like boys hanging around that like them and stuff at school. I mean, usually in like elementary school, I don't know, that stuff really gets kind of going in middle school. And, Um, you know, so I'll look at her phone. I'm gonna sound like a crazy dad right now, but I'll every chance I get when she's not looking, I'll sneak a peek and look at her phone and you know probably every other day, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
just to see the kind of conversations that she's having. For one, to make sure they're kind and respectful to others, and um, I'm raising the daughter, and she's acting as she should, and treating other people the way that they should be treated. Um, but two, obviously, just to check and make sure that there's no boys that have been texting her, and there's
Sure.
no conversations being
Yeah.
being had. The other day I opened her phone, and we were actually going through something together on our calendar, and I saw a little ding comes up, and it's like message from Tate. I was like, hmm. I was like,
Who's Tate?
who is this Tate fella? And her face got just like bright red, dude. And she just like kind of froze up. Like, I mean, looks like she just stole something. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I was like, no, sweetie. I was like, it's okay. Like, I like this is normal, and you're gonna like boys, and you're getting to that age, and I was like, but don't ever give your phone number to another boy without asking your dad first, or your mom, or whatever. And it's just funny, now having those conversations with them, and you got to approach it the right way so that they're not scared to talk to you. And because my little girls are my best friends, you know what I mean? And I know that they, have that same relationship with their mom. And they tell us everything. Like, if my oldest doesn't tell me something, the little one's definitely going to tell me, you know what I mean? She's the one coming home telling on her sister for, talking to a boy. It's at the football game or something like that. She was like, the little one's funny. She'll call her big sister out, So, I think it's all about how, you got to pay attention, man, and you got to be present, and not just, assume that, you know, those things aren't there, right? Like, and it can't happen to you, regardless of what kind of, shell, us protective dads like to put our kids in, or protective moms, or whatever. You know what I mean? We want them to have fun, and but also we kind of build this protective shell around them, to try to protect them from the evil of this world, and make sure nothing like that ever happens to them.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier, some of our friends that are that help rescue children. You don't get a whole lot of credit for that, but I mean, you introduced Matt actually to me, Matt Murphy, who
Yeah.
started Operation Lightshine,
Yeah.
and then but you were really instrumental in the initial forming of that. I remember Matt coming in and you introduced him to a few people, and then the original board meetings were at Black Tie,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit, how that came about and how you were involved.
Yeah, so Matt has been working, or I mean, I've known Matt since I was, oh man, like our late teenage years, probably. So late high school, and we kind of we hung out a lot in like late teens, early 20s, until I moved to Dallas, and then I didn't see him for probably. I mean, we caught up, and we would, but back then, like, social media wasn't just like, like, so prevalent. You didn't know what everybody was doing, or have the ability to look up their I guess their MySpace back then or something,
Sure. Yeah. It was
and see what they were up to. But he kind of disappeared for a while, and I was like, shit, man, I wonder what the hell was Matt up to. And like, his old number didn't work, and I couldn't, like, So anyway, I mean, literally fast forward probably like 7 years, I get a random Instagram message from Matt, and I'd talked to him in probably like, I don't know, it'd be probably 5 to 7 years.
mm,
And, he was like, "Hey, man, I just, I moved back, to Nashville recently. I heard that you were here. Love to see you and catch up." And, it just so happened to be, um, my ex-wife's 30th birthday party, like, was coming up that Friday. So I invited him out, and we, caught up like old friends do. And he told me the news about his little sister, passing, and what had happened to her. And, I mean, I knew his little sister, and I mean, it just broke my heart, dude. And, I saw such like That is one of my best friends. This will get me emotional a little bit, but man, like you saw just how much like you watch that guy go fight for our country, and something like that happens to his little sister while he's away, and I mean, just broke my heart. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, obviously I'd been here, connecting with people for a little bit longer, than he had, and he'd been, off, out of the country fighting the good fight for the US of A. Um, so yeah, man, I just wanted to connect him with, with everybody that I could that could help him, you know, achieve this goal that he wanted. And obviously there was a great, passion and reason behind it. And when you see a friend go through something like that, dude, you want to do everything you can to support them and be there for them. You know what I mean? Because um, I couldn't imagine, myself in that position if it was my daughter. Or, you just think we, oof, well, that would. I don't know if I'd be in jail. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would find whoever it was and make sure I did it.
Yeah, but so, for those listening, our friend Matt Murphy, his sister was, uh, trafficked and murdered, and that was kind of the catalyst for,
Yeah,
him wanting to start
yeah,
Operation Lightshine.
yeah,
Um, yeah, you think about, the things that Matt has done too, like going overseas, fighting, for a country, Green Beret, um, and, you know, you're fighting these wars overseas. But back home, there's a ton of turmoil as well,
yeah.
and a lot of times we don't think about those type of things that the soldiers go through.
Sure.
It's just like, oh, they're going to fight. Like, no, they're leaving home, and home's not perfect right now either.
Yeah,
It's not, and many for a lot of people, it's not so good.
you're right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that they don't really understand the sacrifice and that it's made, and that these guys, and not just them, but their families, like um, the wives, the kids, I mean, that's such a to me, it's one of the probably the most admirable thing that a man can do. You know what I mean? And I think that like guys like me and you, they say like every entrepreneur wants to be a rock star and every rock star wants to be an entrepreneur,
All right.
right? But I think every rock star and entrepreneur um would love their chance to be a soldier, you know what I mean?
Mm, yeah.
And just fight for the things that they believe in. Because that's like, man, like I couldn't I don't know, I think that's just the most admirable thing a man or a woman can do is fight, for something that they believe in that much, um, for so many others, right?
Yeah, and we saw it for so long. I mean, throughout the history of the United States, of course. I think what we're seeing now is all these guys like Matt and a lot of our friends that have been off to war a bunch, and now they're coming back and really questioning what's going on. Like, that's a hard thing. Happened after Vietnam. My dad was drafted into Vietnam, and but you question, you know, you were fighting for all these things that you believed in, sacrificing, giving, watching your brothers die,
Yeah.
and you come back and then you learn maybe you didn't go to war for the right reason.
Yeah.
I mean, think about 9/11.
Yeah.
When 9/11 happened, uh, we basically, blamed Afghanistan. Then we
Mhm.
said that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. We know that Iraq now didn't have weapons of mass
Yeah.
destruction. We know that Osama bin Laden was found in Pakistan,
Yeah.
and we spent 20 years, over there. We just and do a brutal pullout, and it's interesting, when I talk to my friends now that sacrifice all those things, and a lot of them are questioning that as well.
Was it just politics and business and money and greed? I think that, that's very, very good, question. I think that um, I think there's a lot of soldiers and people out there that regret, um, and I mean, we're not even considering the things that they had to do
Yeah.
for our country. I mean, take others' lives, right?
Yep.
and then, coming home and maybe realizing that it was, um, not for the right reasons, you know what I mean, is a hard pill to swallow. And I think that, you can look at that as like you know, I think I think entrepreneurs like feel the same way a lot, right? And we can relate to that like as
Mm.
entrepreneurs, right? Like I know in some like, and we've known each other for long enough to know that hey, everything's not always perfect,
Sure.
right? Like they're with great success comes great responsibility and great sacrifice, and it's not always great, right? So
Mm.
you look at like the first I've been uh divorced for 3 years now, separated, I guess, whatever. Still going through a divorce for 3 years now. But that time that I sacrificed and maybe some of the reasons, for that divorce, I look back and I'm like, man, all I was focused on is success, success, making money, growing, getting bigger, getting, creating more. You know what I mean? That's all that we think about. And, I think that coming down to, the times, some of the highest times, like for us as entrepreneurs and soldiers are, hey, we got these big wins, but then we look back at everything that we're sacrificing, and that's the big major question, like, was it worth it? Right. And I think sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't, and
Mhm.
I think that it all really depends on, I know that when I kind of came back and got a good look in the mirror, when when my marriage ended, and I was like, well, maybe I was not focusing on the right things. Maybe there were some things that I could have done, differently that would have eh, kept this from happening. But I think that we all are driven by, we're all human, first of all. Second, divorce is hard. She's a great person, and I still love her and respect her because she's the mother of my children, and I always will. Um, but sometimes those sacrifices can drive wedges in relationships, and you know sometimes you'll find the prize at the end of the tunnel or whatever. We as entrepreneurs or soldiers, like we're all fighting for to win, right? To win the
Right.
battle, right?
Right.
And once you win and you looked at, everything it's cost you, sometimes I think it's hard to weigh all that, but,
Those are
we're
really
we're
good
all
points.
we're
Yeah.
all individuals, and we all, have a path and a plan, and, but, God's is always greater, and,
Mhm.
I know that, um, I feel like everybody's putting each other's lives for a reason, whether that's your friends or your family or your friends that are like family,
Mhm.
and, you can either, let that stuff, destroy you internally and and let it win, or you can look for the lessons and learn from them and get better. And it's this is a short life that we have to live, man, and it's very important that we all make the most of every single day, and that most importantly we're happy,
Yeah.
because as entrepreneurs or as soldiers, even if they're winning the battle, they're missing their families. And
Sure.
there's a lot of things that they're sacrificing and a lot of hard work that they're putting in. And sometimes, just like entrepreneurs, you have to go back home, and you don't win the battle. And
Sure.
then it's like, man, I'm sacrificing all of this to lose,
Yeah.
right? For my business to, fold, or for, for us to lose a war, whatever. Like, it's crazy to kind of think about, but I think that you do the best that you can, and with what you got, and we're all motivated by different things, and um, I think we all have our own unique path, in this world, and it's up to us to live it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Those are a lot of good points. And like from an entrepreneurial standpoint, is the sacrifice worth it? Um, I look back now over the years, and I would say all of it was. The parts I question is, time away from my parents, as they get older, like, uh, should I, you know, work is as busy now as it's ever been.
Yeah.
It's probably going to always be busy,
Sure.
So, um, what is the balance of spending time, with them as they get older, to where I don't have regrets,
Sure.
to where they, um, you know, uh, they know how much, I love them, and that I know that I gave everything that I possibly could
Yeah.
to be with them, especially in their older years. But so if I were to think about regrets, maybe I have some regret of that over the last few years. If my business would have just failed, I'd have a lot of regret. Like, I wish I did.
Yeah, it's kind of a that trickles down. That trickles down too,
Right. But I think that, and I think you start thinking about these things as you get a little older.
You do.
Moving to Mexico for me 9 years ago or so, I thought it just made sense. It makes total sense to move to Tijuana, Mexico, and live in the hospital. And what do you mean this is a bad idea? I couldn't get investors, man. I got told no by everybody. Yeah. Everybody's like, no. And then, and at the time I was like, why can't they see this? And then now, 9 years later, like, oh, I would have never invested.
Yeah, I would have never done that.
I know, I get it now. Yeah, by the time you have the vision,
yeah,
and the vision's there, and I couldn't see why anybody else couldn't see it.
Yeah,
and that's fair. But moving away for so long, that's looking back. I wasn't worried about regretting that at the time.
Yeah,
but now I can see, wow, that was a big sacrifice.
Yeah.
Being away from my friends in Nashville, being away from my family, being away from, just everything, and being in another country and in Tijuana specifically. So, but, even going back further, I actually made a post today. I showed like an old fight video that I had, and it was from 2003. So, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And one fight after that fight, I was fighting for an organization called Shudo. And Shudo, back then, Shudo was a big organization. Jake Shields and I were both ranked in the top 10.
Yeah, that's cool.
A little later that year. But they offered me a fight for the world title in Japan against Jitoru Nakao. And I'd gotten in legal trouble about 2 years before, and the judge wouldn't let me out of the country. And so, at the time I was devastated because that was like my shot. I mean, Nakao was a great fighter. I'm not saying I would have beat him, but I felt like I would have. It would have been a good fight.
Yeah.
And I think about the trajectory my life would have been on if I would have won that fight.
Yeah.
And because the judge wouldn't let me out of the country, I decided to focus on my fighters, training my fighters, building my martial arts school, which ended up being one of the largest in the country.
Yeah.
And my clothing line, Gameness, we were the largest supplier of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu martial arts uniforms in the world. So we built those up. And, at the time, it was just like a devastating thing. And I still have a little regret, if that makes sense. Like I still, what if, and I really wanted to fight, but I'm so happy with the direction it sent my life as well, if that makes sense.
That makes exact sense, man, because I felt the same way kind of, and let's say, I wouldn't have got hurt, right? I maybe go play some college ball. Like, the chances of me making it pro and being like super successful and maybe earning the income that I do today in the major leagues for as long as I will, right? And building this like that would have probably never happened, right? But in the moment, because we're just competitors, right? And we hate failing, I hate failing more than I like winning, right? and that's probably why I'll just fight to the I mean all about it, but it's like those, if that would have happened, the trajectory that it would have set my life on, I'm probably in some old broke, washed up, maybe played A or double A, baseball, earning 30 grand a year. And, so it's funny how, we always kind of focus on our plan. And when life kind of takes us another way, we can sit there and kick dirt and complain about it. And, or, you can learn to go pro in something else. And I think that's kind of what we both did.
Absolutely.
And it might not have been what we dreamed of as a child, right? But at least we went pro in something, and at least we changed lives and made an impact, on our communities. And you know, it's that's what's fun, man. And I think that guys like us, we're like that's why we're both, got our hands in 12 different pots at all times and trying to, because once we got to the top, like we're the fastest growing moving company like in history as far as I know of, right?
Mhm.
According to the Inc. 5000. And you know, this is silly, but I found myself then, you know, it was like, now what? You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Of
Now
course.
what? And I think that that's a haunting question for guys like us.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also what drives us and motivates us and pushes us to be everything that we're capable of being and not having like these limiting beliefs like I feel like so many people do, right? Like a lot of people will start, I mean, we've all known them, right? We've got the friends that have done 90 different things, but none of them well because they didn't stick to something and and,
'Cause they
and,
quit
and
too soon.
invest. Right. Yeah.
They quit too soon.
They're soft, dude. I mean, and I hate to tell you this, but there's, you know, we got I don't know, shoot, 700 movers, and to find those guys out of the soft generation that's being
Oh,
raised
yeah, I
right
can't
now
even
that doesn't want
imagine.
to, has never worked with their hands in their life or has never, you know, like they just want to be, TikTok dancers or, freaking, do something with the computer. Like
This
nobody
th
wants to do
this is
manual labeling.
this is why you want the AI to come so fast so you can get those robots moving
But I'm
for
not
you.
going to tell you my
I'm just
adventures.
throwing that
I
out
mean,
there,
I'm
sorry.
not,
Like, just catch it up.
yeah,
No, but you are correct, man. The work ethic, isn't, you know, it's not what we grew up with.
right.
And, the difference though, I see people quit way too soon, and it's like, "Oh, no, like, how are you successful?" "Well, you know what? I just didn't quit."
Yeah.
And,
I mean, I didn't fail. I
yeah,
just didn't
"Oh,
quit.
I just didn't
I failed
quit."
a lot. That's
Oh,
how we learn.
and it's also interesting as you're going through those times where you fell and people are like, see,
Yep.
I know, like, oh wait, I don't even see it as a bad thing.
No.
Failure is part of the
Yeah.
process of being successful.
Right.
People see us now and they're like, oh, 10-year overnight success.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, you have no
Yeah.
idea
Yeah.
the sacrifice,
Exactly.
my company's almost been bankrupt multiple times
Yeah.
over the last
Yeah.
9 years. I mean, I remember over COVID talking to you about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, it's brutal right
Mhm.
now. And, those are a lot of sleepless nights
Oh,
and
yeah.
didn't ever think we were going to quit. I mean,
Yeah.
always with the vision, like, no, we're
And
going
I
to make it no
remember,
matter what.
yeah. And, I think that, when we talk about like kind of like the DNA behind like a successful person in any, you know, in any trade or, whether it's a, musician or a mover, right? Like, um, I think that they all have a certain level of drive um, in them that maybe most others don't,
Yeah.
and just kind of like a will, not to quit, right? And that comes from our reason, like our personal whys, and it has a lot to do with the people that we surround ourselves with and the mentors that we have in our lives, because if everybody, I can tell you this, dude. I mean, and I've been, when I started doing music, they're like, here's this guy here's this guy with all this money coming along and
Yeah.
and quite frankly, like if it was that easy, there'd be a lot more successful people in the music industry,
Sure.
right? um but the simple fact is if that's the game that you play, you will be quickly recognized, called out, and shunned for
Mhm.
that, and that's why, I mean, it almost like started, it pissed me off a little bit, and like I took it personal because people thought that, oh, I was just, using, I mean, we've got like almost 10 million streams now in 3 years, which isn't huge, or I'm, far, far, far from anywhere I want to be. But, um, but at the same time, we've come a long way
Mhm.
in a short amount of time, and, we've been on arena tours and, those are not, I didn't pay to be on that tour. I didn't get paid a lot to be on that tour because I was, put in front of, 15,000 people to play my original music.
Right.
I mean, that alone, I started doing this, because I wanted to make music in honor of my father and to do something that I loved during a very dark time in my place or
Yeah.
in my life. I was at the highest point, like financially and from a career and professionally, right? But a lot of those things I had to sacrifice ended up costing me my marriage.
Mhm.
And we grew apart because I was always out networking or building the business or working late on a move or on my phone talking to a client or it's not just being away all the time, but it's not being present either, right? You can be
Yeah.
in the same room and not be present with somebody. And you know, there's just a lot of things that the people in your life are really going to mold, who you are for the better or for the worse. And I think that guys like us that I mean we're drivers of others, not of the people around us as well, right?
Mhm.
Like I'd like to think that you and I and our community and circles of friends, like um we're looked up to in some sense because of our entrepreneurial success. So we get a lot of questions, and we're kind of older. We're a little older than most of our close friends, and I love to do that, and I love to motivate them and inspire them that they can do whatever they want to do. And when I started doing this music stuff, it was because I wanted to do it. It wasn't
Mhm.
for anybody else. It was for me, right? Um, I couldn't I was going through a divorce, there's lots of businesses and money involved, and, I kinda your attorneys tell you, just you can't say anything, you can't talk about this, can't talk about that, so you just kind of, um, ball all those emotions up, right?
Sure.
And the one way that I found that I could, get those things out and is with a pen and a paper writing a song or, singing a story, if you look if you go through my album, every single song in there relates to those times in my life, and, it was something special to me that would live forever
Did
that
you write all the music on your album?
No, no, no,
No.
not all the music, no,
Did you write a good amount of it?
3rd.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
Got it.
we know too many great songwriters in town, Ed. That is the one way I will I didn't utilize my money, to launch my music career, but I did in fact, use my relationships,
There you go.
and I will tell you right now that those are a lot more valuable than money, and those
Yeah,
weren't, those didn't fall in my lap, I earned them,
absolutely.
so that's, and that took years and years and years and years and years.
Yeah, I just had a podcast a few weeks ago where, like, relationships are way more important than money.
Absolutely.
I mean, people that's another thing for business people don't understand is, you know, it is about relationships. I saw Nito Quibin speaking from a stage one time, and he said, "What is power?" He asked the crowd, "What is power?" And he's like, "Power isn't money. It's not." He's like, "Power equals access."
Yep.
He's like, "Who can you get in the room with and talk to? How many people can you call just by opening up your Rolodex and to help get things done?" And those relationships, the access comes from relationships,
Yeah.
and those relationships, as you said, are earned.
Yeah. And I
And
think through respect and gratitude, um, and 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 giving, and looking for those, valuable like I mean, if you think about it, I'm a high school dropout and don't have, there's not like anything and don't come from a lot of money. Like I approach relationships. There's not anything, that I have to give like that, especially early on, when we're kind of hustling for our first jobs and stuff. But, there's always, you know, there's always unique value that we can add to people. And if you just look for it and you just, um, you don't wait for it to happen to you or to fall in your lap, but you're intentional with it, and you actually look for ways to it's very few times is it do people need your help monetarily, you know what I mean? Maybe it's emotionally, maybe it's being a good friend, maybe it's, trying to help them solve a problem that, that they're stuck on, you know what I mean?
mhm,
Professionally or maybe in their life, right? Um it's being a problem solver and being a supporter and a cheerleader for those around you.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what earns you relationships. And if you can do that, you can be successful at anything that you put your mind to.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's one thing that I see not just young entrepreneurs, but young people missing.
Yeah.
They're chasing the money,
Yep.
where I think probably you and I want the relationship.
Absolutely.
And what is a relationship? I mean, it's two ways. It's not one way.
Correct.
It's not me taking from you or you taking from me. It's being a good person and being a good friend and
Yeah.
building trust.
Absolutely.
Ultimately you have the trust and you can get a lot of things done. And the more trust that you have with your friends and people, the more that you can really get done at a high level.
Absolutely.
I found that, with the scientists that I get to work with, I mean, some of the most brilliant scientists in immunology and immunogenetics and genetics and genomics and all these different things. And I'm like, I was thinking, like, why are they working with somebody like me? Well, we built a relationship and have trust,
Yep.
and they know that I'm going to do whatever I can to get the job done for our shared vision,
Yeah.
which hasn't ever been done before.
Yeah.
And so, but it is the relationship and building that trust that, has got them to support and be a part of our team.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of people they'll create a relationship, but they don't really know how to build trust along the way. Trust is doing what you say you're going to do
What you
when
say?
you say you're going to do it. It's exceeding, their expectations. It's being intentional with, with your ideas and behaviors that can, help them or support them in any way that you can, and when you set yourself aside, that's really, when that trust is earned. You know what I mean? Like when people, it's like the first time, this, like when people come up to you and somebody like tries to, and I'm weird about this now.
Mm.
Like I analyze this shit out of people, but like when somebody comes up and like does something for you now to like, in today's society without anything in return, you're kind of like, what's this guy want, dude? What's he looking for?
Right.
Why is he doing this? You know what I mean? And then he comes around and maybe he does something else. And it's just like, it must be pretty kind. Okay. All right. I'll warm up to it a little bit. You know what I mean? And then, so it's doing like, just kind of acts of generosity or, of gratitude like that, um, you know, find ways to help other people,
Sure.
get what they want and solve the problems that they have. There's so many, I feel like society now is just like they're coming to you, giving you something, but they've got their hand out while they're doing it, expecting you to automatically give them, whatever they're looking for in return without earning that trust yet, you
Sure.
know?
Yeah. See, my approach to it is maybe a little different. I actually, when people are trying to be giving or whatever, I try to trust them right away.
Mm.
I just say, go ahead. And if they screw me, it's on them,
Yeah.
and I don't let it bother me. And, obviously I don't want to lose a ton of money or whatever, but it doesn't,
Yeah.
I try not
The
to.
little thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I want people to feel like
Sure.
they can come to me,
Absolutely.
if they have a good heart and then
Yeah.
without me being closed off. And I understand where you're coming from, but I'm saying like, I've actually been cognitive of it. Like, no, I'm going to
Yeah.
just let it. Cause a lot of times I find I mean, almost every time it's well intended.
Yeah.
When people come, that it really, really is. And yeah, maybe they have an angle, but they really want to get to know me anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, their angle was one way to get in, but I'm okay with it
Yeah, I
because
mean, at the end of the day, we all have an angle, I reckon, right?
yeah.
I
So
mean, we all have a goal and things that we want to achieve and what fulfill us. But what do you think about really the you know when people like ask you to define success? Like we were talking about a little earlier. I think they have a very I guess um, warped impression of what success looks like, and
sure.
and I think it's different to everybody, but I feel like there's fulfillment and then there's success, right?
Mhm.
And I think what is your I know I'm over here asking the questions now just because I
Well,
want
it's
to.
a
Hey, you're
conversation.
you're a smart guy, and I want to ask you questions, and I'm curious about this too. Um, but like, how would you define fulfillment and success, and what do you think's the best way to have both, or to have it all, if you will?
I think it's for me, it's like having a great relationship with my family,
Yeah.
my parents, my brother, um, anyone who's close to me, knowing they can trust me.
Yep.
I'm a trustworthy person, and yeah, I am. I mean, it's
Yeah.
if
Oh, I know you are.
my word is my word. I'll do my best. Sometimes I fall short, but it's like having those that are around me that actually know me, know my heart, and not get it mixed up
Yeah.
with all the stuff going on in the world.
Sure.
Um, it's being able to help people.
Yep.
Being outward focused. I always say, when in doubt, focus out. So it's
Yep.
even if I'm feeling bad one day, like
Mhm.
anybody else, you have bad days, but being outward focused and giving, giving yourself to people.
Yeah.
And I found that that really brings a lot of uh, joy in my life. It's when
Same.
I'm able to really
Yeah.
give back and help people. And so it's not even, so notice I didn't mention financial.
Yeah. No, it really doesn't.
It's like relationships. It's
Yeah.
true relationships where, uh, you know, there's like a real love involved that you
Correct.
can give and that you get in return, because that's the most fulfilling thing to me.
Yeah.
It's like, how do we have that real human connection where people know that even if there's plenty of people, I got a couple hundred employees, but and I'm not the easiest person to work with sometimes,
Yeah.
but they also know that if I get intense in a work moment, that I still care about them.
Sure.
It's not personal.
Yeah.
And if I
Yeah, we're
fall
probably
short, I'll bring it up.
Yeah.
I'll say, hey, sorry, but it's having those, because I think what we're seeing in society right now is a lot of people are afraid to be themselves, because if they act one way wrong one time, it's now all over, let's say,
Sure.
social media, or their
Yeah.
friends or this, and it, society is trying to suggest that we should all be perfect, and they're not giving anybody grace.
I agree.
And so I think that, living in a way that is authentic, and that I can fall short and know that my friends and family will still, I mean, of course, my family will have my back no matter
Yeah.
what, but even my friends, I know that if I were to screw up, I got a ton of friends that would be there for me as well. And that to me is success.
Absolutely. I
What
definitely
about you?
think, I definitely think that that's a great answer. And I think that, well, we can't take any money with us, man. We just leave with our legacy and the relationships we made and the impact that we had on them. Right. Um, so that's awesome, man. Um,
What do you consider success?
you know, I think that's changed a lot in my life. Like as I've grown and developed, like, like we were talking about earlier, man, when I, got hurt playing ball and was forced out into the world making $9 an hour and $25 an apartment lease. I thought success was $100,000, right? And all my worries and troubles would go away. And I would live like a king for the rest of my life, because nobody in my family had ever made $100,000. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I grew up a lot around my friends' parents and things like that. And that I kind of, would learn for, and I think learn from, and you know when you grow up kind of like we did, like we're looking for people that are more successful or financially stable than we are, and we're kind of like taking notes even as like young men and kids, right? Because we know, we don't know really why we're in the position that we are, but we know that we would rather be in that one. Like,
Right.
our buddy Johnny that, has a dirt bike and a cool car and, every, gaming system that, but, we didn't grow up like that. Right.
No.
We always kind of had to do without or go to our friend's house. So I think that it, you know, like that upbringing kind of naturally, um, teaches us to want more. Right. And, I think that over the years, went from maybe being 100,000 to, a couple 100,000. Then when I started Black Time Moving and I made my first million, um, you know, that then it was like, oh, okay, yeah, there's nowhere to go from here. This is it. We're capped out. We're, owning a moving company, right? So I thought that looked like success. And then, and then I had my first little girl, and she, when she was born, she, the doctor like handed her to me or whatever. She looked up at me and she grabbed my pinky finger and put her hand around it and squeezed my pinky finger.
Mhm.
And and I found out at that very moment that what success for me looks like is, being to provide those little girls, the life I always wanted, and to get to raise them and spend. I mean, it's just the biggest blessing. Like out of all the cool things I've gotten to do in my life, or of monetary things that I've had or experienced, like there's nothing truly like even in the same ballpark um than like nothing compares to being their dad. And it's just an awesome feeling. So now it's like, okay, well, I don't there's a difference in just being there. And I think that, in the first, like the early years of their life, I kind of sacrificed some time and, missed some things like, when they were little that, maybe I regret a little bit. But at the end of the day, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be where I am today, and I wouldn't be
Sure.
able to provide them the life that I do. Um, and those are all blessings, I feel like. And now, even though, me and my ex-wife have gone our separate ways, that like absolutely crushed me. You know what I mean? It's like you feel like I'm at the highest, the peak of success and, making seven figures a year. And then, I lose um everything that, really, meant anything to me, right? And you
Hmm.
start kind of questioning, you know, at that time, I think that's when that was my big like aha, you know what I mean? Um and I just kind of, I kind of steered my ship and do things a little bit differently. And it's not, it's because I think we grew up without money. It's that's been the one thing that we've always taught ourselves. Like we're hunters, right? Like we are hunters,
Hmm.
um and you know I think that hunger for like growth and success will always be a part of us, but um, I've just learned how to balance it a lot more, and I do think that I'm the closest to having it all from a perspective of family. I'm with my girls 50% of the time. Used to when I was with them 100% of the time, I was probably out working 70% of that time. So now I make sure to put 1,000% into that 50% of the time that I have them, and they're my one and only focus. And honestly, we have the best relationship that we've ever had, like in their lives, and the closest relationship that we've ever had in their lives. Um, and I would have never guessed that or thought that I could have that 3 years ago. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
nice.
Um, but we do, and I think it's all about your priorities. And yeah, like I'm not working 80 hours a week like I was in black tie when they were little, so that makes
Mhm.
it a little easier. But it's kind of like we put in the effort and the hard work, on the front end to have some, to be able to relax and to buy ourselves some of that time later on in our lives when I don't know if it's more important, later than or sooner than later, but I know that you got to put in a lot of hard work on that front end to build, something special, like we've done. Um and then, you kind of spend the rest of the time making up for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think there's the balance because we're talking about our goal, like what's success, and ultimately you said your family,
Yeah.
your kids. For me, I was saying family and relationships with friends, and you know, uh, them knowing that they can count on me.
Yeah.
But you know, that's that's uh, you can get that without being successful in business.
Correct.
But I think that our success in business has uh, helped us uh, be better in those areas
Yeah.
because we're not, we're more present, and we're not as stressed.
Yeah.
Luckily, you went through the 80-hour work weeks, years ago. You're not doing that
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I'm still working a lot. I don't have kids though,
Yeah.
but I'm also able to fly anytime I want. We're getting ready to get a new jet.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Nice.
we'll be able to fly back and forth.
Yeah.
That's a blessing.
Yeah.
And but it's so that the business success is now providing is now helping me be all those other things of success that
Absolutely.
I want to be.
Yeah.
It makes it a little easier.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that, it definitely, there's levels to this business and life thing, right? Like, and each level is going to, require a new you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and it's hard, and some of the levels, are harder than others, and they definitely, blend together sometimes, and it's hard to, keep your priorities straight and really look out rather than in and focus just on the things that, in my mind, if I could just um, make millions of dollars a year, then my family's always going to be happy, right?
Hmm.
Because I grew up very impoverished, and that's the one thing that I desired, in my youth was just, um, I mean, as much as I love hamburger helper and ramen noodles, bro, I still eat them today. This,
Yeah,
I
me
just
too.
did, I didn't really want, I didn't really want my kids to experience, that. And, so there's definitely, there's nothing wrong with being a hunter and being a great entrepreneur. But, I think that, being a great, dad and friend and son and all of that is just, if not more important, because I think once you realize that I've seen lots of, I won't say lots, but I've definitely seen a hand or two full of entrepreneurs that were got so massively immersed in success and money that it became greed and useless competition and created big egos.
Hmm.
And then they find themselves sitting, at the top of this, this big bank account and don't have, any meaningful relationships to share their life with.
Yeah.
And that's the loneliest place on earth,
Oh yeah.
right? When they say, it's lonely at the top. Well, in more than one way,
Sure.
it can certainly be. And um, I think that, none of us are perfect. We're all going to make mistakes and stumble along the way. And hopefully we learn lessons from the mistakes that we do make, so we can have that kind of personal growth and development and help others, and have conversations like this, and so it helps others, not make the same mistakes that you did. I
Yeah.
think that, that's what it's all about.
Wait, one other thing I want to bring up, and just so I don't forget, is this. I want to kind of get your view on it. I see the language in the world right now, like they talk to people like being marginalized or oppressed, and I think a lot of it's well intended.
Mhm.
They're trying to help these groups that are disadvantaged per se,
Sure.
or seemingly disadvantaged. Maybe be calling them disadvantaged is an issue that I have. Uh, but how important are the words that we speak to people and ourselves and their success? So if you were to tell a kid he's going to be a failure over and over again, or that he's got everything up against him,
Yeah.
uh, what kind of impact is that going to have versus if you say, you know what, you can do whatever you want?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, encouraging, people, especially kids, obviously, at a very early age. I mean, what we hear determines what we think. You know what I mean? What we think determines what we do, and you know, and that determines everything. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things that, with with like these impoverished communities, or the, the ones that we grew up around. I mean, we certainly, like, we serve a lot of those. I know you do as well, but at Black Tie, like, we serve a lot of those communities, and in addition to, um, homeless, the homeless communities and single battered moms and things like that. And so, I mean, we're kind of in, in the church, and we don't just go hand them a check. Like, we go barbecue for them and stuff like that on a,
Hmm.
on a Thursday or something, you know what I mean? So I definitely think that, there's kind of a mentality. I think that if that's where you're from, then that's where you'll always be. And I certainly don't agree with that, but I feel like, you know, negative minds are going to breed negative minds and negative behaviors, right? So, if those people, if those kids are being told that, then that's what they're going to believe, right?
Yeah.
And if that's what they believe, that's probably who they're going to become.
Yeah. It's like, so you know that, I know that, um, we've read books like Think and Grow Rich. I'm sure
Yeah.
you read Think and Grow Rich. And As a Man Thinketh, you know, why do you think that that's the messaging going on to one group of society? because to me, anybody that's successful would know that if you keep telling a group that they're underprivileged or they're
Yeah.
uh, marginalized or that they've got all these obstacles up against them that's not fair,
Yeah.
uh, that they're gonna be just that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, at the end of the day, life's not fair. It doesn't matter what color or religion that you are, or, it doesn't discriminate, against one race or another, or one religion or another. Um, I think that what we speak out into the world and what we put into our minds are huge. I think it's a huge disservice for anybody to speak to the next generations like they are like they're not capable of achieving anything that they want to achieve in this life just because of where they came from, or their current circumstances. You
Because you
know,
and I didn't come from a
no,
lot of money.
no. I
Eh,
think I mean hell,
like
I grew up in a $12,000 house, in the middle of nowhere, Arkansas. So um, if I can do it, and if you can do it, certainly so can they. I don't think that I was given, a cheat code, and I don't think you were either. And we, were able to do the things that we, have done, and I don't think there's. I'm not going to say it's like an excuse, but for like people that tend to uh, you know, people that tend to uh, have victim mentalities make a lot of excuses, right? And they make a lot of excuses because they don't want to do the work,
right.
So, unfortunately, everybody has to do the work in order to win, right? Like that, like that's the one you can't skip that, level and
No,
just, hey, this is well the difference between what you want and what you deserve is the amount of work that you put into something, right?
absolutely.
Not you can you know, wish in one hand and shit in the other, see which one fills up faster. But nothing's gonna really happen until somebody puts the work in, and that's where I'm afraid to say that that's probably where most of people fail is they think it's easy and they think that they're just not prepared for the work or the sacrifice that it's going to take.
I'll have people kindly say, "Oh, you deserve all the success," and I appreciate them saying
Yeah.
that. But I'm thinking, I don't know if I deserve it.
Yeah,
But I,
right.
I worked for it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right.
That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
you know,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah.
I mean, it's the whole mentality of hard work. And
Mhm.
one of my fight coaches, Lloyd Irvin, he would say, "Hard work always beats talent when talent refuses to work hard."
Yep.
And it's very true
It is.
because if you're willing to work harder than anybody else and not make excuses and not become
Right.
a victim to your circumstances, I mean, you got to think about back about how many times in our lives that we could become victims to our
Yeah.
circumstances. I mean, I think about like my probation 20 something years ago
Mhm.
and, 8 years on probation.
Yeah.
I could have been the biggest victim to that. Oh, I've
Sure.
got to go get my, got to go get my, drug test every week and I got to pay this thing. And the probation officers aren't very nice and
Yeah.
they're trying to screw me and
Yep.
blah, 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 blah. I could have made up all these stories. Or I could have just said, you know what? I did what they said. I need to handle my business.
Own it. Yep.
This is what it is and get it done.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of things with having a felony on your record that you could think of. Oh, well, this is holding me
Sure.
back.
Yeah.
But in reality, I don't exactly look at it that
No.
way.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few things that I can't do, but there's also a lot of opportunity out
Yeah.
there, and
Absolutely.
so you got to look at the opportunity in the things rather than the problems.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think, sometimes people um sit around waiting for opportunity to kind of fall in their lap, right? Instead of going out and seeking it or looking for it. And I would say most of the time that I've found the biggest amounts of opportunity is through, failures or lessons through failures of something else. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But people refuse to look at the lessons and the failures because they want to feel sorry for themselves or make excuses why that happened to them
Yeah.
rather than look in the mirror and say, hey, own it, learn from it and move forward and be better.
We
right? Like
wouldn't be
that's
successful if it weren't for our
right.
failures. I
Yeah.
mean, that's it.
Yep.
Like the failures really determine how successful, in business you're going to be.
Absolutely.
Actually, in life too,
Yeah.
things that are the biggest roadblocks, biggest breakdowns are breakthroughs.
Yep.
You break
Absolutely.
through those things, and yeah, most people, as we were saying earlier, most people aren't successful because they quit.
Yeah.
And it is really that simple. I mean,
It
how
is.
many times have we seen people that had good ideas that just didn't think that they could?
Yeah.
Maybe they let their inner self talk that was negative take
Yeah.
hold. Maybe their friends or family were like, I don't know if you should keep doing this,
Mhm.
or whatever those circumstances were.
Yeah.
They let those get in the
Do you
way.
think that you know much about racing, like race cars,
Not
right?
a lot, no.
So so um when a professional like NASCAR driver, right,
Mhm.
is about to have a bad wreck, right? Um they are coached and trained to not look at the wall that they're about to hit, but to immediately look at where they want to go, right?
Really?
And that's like their psych like that's just as soon as you feel like, hey, we're about to, we're gonna about to be out of control. I'm about to lose control
Yeah.
and and hit this wall, right?
Mhm.
Our natural like human behavior is to look directly at the wall that we're about to hit and just watch ourselves crash into it, right?
Okay.
And how they train these professional NASCAR drivers is they say as soon as you have that feeling, and a lot of it's about instinct, right? Like when you're
Sure.
when you're driving those cars, it's like you immediately look to where you want to be, right? And I don't know, what it does, but it obviously helps them eliminate some the severity of some wrecks and obviously has a very positive impact. But if you take that kind of back to where like to an entrepreneur or just a person living their life, oftentimes we have like if something, it'd have been very easy for me to, when my divorce happened, to sit there and wallow in my, in my, worries and fears and just, and be depressed. And just internalize it that way, right? And focus on the divorce and just let that eat me alive, right? Um, but instead, I started focusing on other things. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like music, like you know, um, how I was going to, you know, be a not as good of a dad, but a better dad. You know, post this divorce or separation, not looking at the 50% that I wasn't going to have them, and sitting around and focusing on that, but looking at the 50% that I did have them and figuring out how I could make the absolute most out of that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where people really, kind of, go off the rails, if you will, because, most people, when they face problems, they're like that NASCAR driver that's hitting the wall and they look straight at the wall and they're like, oh shit. And
Yeah.
they wait until they slam into it and crash and burn, right?
Yeah.
And while other cars are, while, on its way to crash and burn, we're looking at where we want to go. We're not focusing on the problem. We're focusing on, the things that we can do to solve it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's why a lot of people, that's the difference in why a lot of people win and lose, right? It's because that crash, might be the last one. Maybe
Yeah.
you die in that crash. Maybe, you lose your legs in that crash and can never walk again. But I mean, that's how a lot of people live their lives and go through transitions, or trauma, things that are traumatic in their life, because that's all they focus on, right? They just focus on the bad and not the blessings, right? And
Yeah.
what they can do with the ones that they have.
Yeah, that's a good point, and, people do get distracted for the wrong things and think it's over,
Yeah, for sure.
way too soon.
Yeah, and if you'd have just stuck in there a little bit longer
Oh,
and had some
man.
faith in yourself and believed and just had a positive attitude will just take you so far. I don't know about you, but like with all my employees, man, you could be the best mover in my company and have a shitty attitude, and I don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You could be bless your heart, the worst mover at the company, but you show up on time every day, you have a good attitude and you're willing to learn and you're progressing and getting better. And I'll stick by that dude
Yeah.
for as long as it takes.
All day long.
Right.
Yep.
And that's, a lot of folks don't look at it that way or keep those attitudes.
Well, that, and then, like gratitude too.
Yeah.
Like
Big
people
time.
that are grateful
Yeah.
for opportunity.
Sure.
People that are grateful to, uh, just do different things. When I, let's say, go to a hotel or a restaurant, and there's a lot of great people that work at hotels and restaurants, but let's say you get, um, someone who you point out and you're like, wow, that person's just not very nice to the customers.
Yeah.
And generally doesn't bother me personally, but I do think, like, if my employee were to ever act that way towards a customer, like it would not go down.
Yeah.
I mean, you go down to CPI, you go down to the hospital. I mean, our staff is awesome.
I've heard.
I mean,
I've
it's
heard they're
just
amazing.
like they're just on point, and smiling and truly happy.
Yeah.
Outward focus, giving. They're incredible, and so and we're blessed with that. And it's taken a lot, as you know, with employees.
yeah.
It takes a lot to get employees to get the right employees.
Yeah, and build
in there
that
to be like
culture
that.
around them for sure.
Yeah, but when I see some of these other companies, these are generally bigger companies, but like
Sure.
attitudes, I'm like, I would never
Yeah.
allow that. And it's people aren't just, they're not happy to be at work. They're
Yeah.
not happy to be doing what they're doing, and it's really an outlook on life. Like if you're not grateful for the things that you have in life, people probably aren't going to want to be around you, and guys like us probably won't want to have you working with us either.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, man. And I think that, feel like today's society, like they want it all and they want it right now.
Mhm.
And they really don't like that. That doesn't happen
Right.
unless you are, I was going to name a couple country artists, but, no, I mean, unless like you're, unless it never happens right now, but let's just say that, from an entrepreneurial perspective or from, these musicians or ball players have been working on this their whole life, right? They've been perfecting this craft and preparing them to get to where, they are when that moment comes. But I think the younger generations definitely, they'll see guys like us and they're like, well, I want that right now. Well,
Right.
well, that's not how this game works.
It's not how it works,
Yeah.
homie.
You've got to participate a little bit more, sacrifice a little more, and put a little more work in. So, and I love that ambition right behind it,
Yeah.
because they want more. Hopefully, they're going to do more, right?
But
In order
I
to get
don't
it.
think, though, there's ever been an easier time to be successful.
No, I agree.
Gosh, there's
Yeah,
so
there's
many
so many things.
soft dudes out there.
Yeah, I agree.
And I was talking about this on the podcast yesterday. There's so many
Mhm.
soft men, let's call them men,
Yeah.
in their 20s and early 30s.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, if you're in your 20s and 30s and you want to be a successful entrepreneur, never been easier.
Yeah.
All you got to do is put your head down, shut up,
Mhm.
get to work,
Yeah.
grind it out, be grateful, build relationships, be a good
Yeah.
person. All these things that seem like common sense.
Yeah.
But simply, if you do those things, yeah, you're probably going to be pretty darn successful, because nobody else right now, I shouldn't say nobody, very few people right now in those age demographics are willing to even do that.
Yeah. Well, I think that, a lot of people want to, they want to do what's sexy instead of, what maybe they're great at sometimes, right? Like I think about this, like there's no, owning a moving company or like, there's nothing really sexy about that at all. Right. If anything, the absolute opposite. We kind of make it sexy, right? By, putting some
Red
better
carpet,
people
bow
and
tie.
yeah, we make it luxury,
You're
right?
going.
And that's obviously the brand and
Sure.
and we want to make people feel special and good in their homes and make them understand that we really do care, right?
Mhm.
But I think that most people you know, like they want to do the cool thing or what's going to give them this image or, you know, that's why there's no, you know, nobody wants to do blue collar stuff anymore, right? Like, or like, man, the plumbers are about to be extinct. You know, when the movers and the plumbers and you know, all the people that you rely on to do all the shit that you don't want to do, when there's no more of them, like people are going to start thinking about this. But it's
Yeah.
coming because I can tell you, you know, how hard it is to get, you know, to get employees to do, you know, in our industry right now. I mean,
Well, maybe with, all the women's rights movements, we could have some women plumbers in,
yeah,
you know?
absolutely,
Let's let them, work their way up and,
absolutely.
get them into the moving the furniture too,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
absolutely.
I've been
We've had
pretty
a
upset
couple.
actually that there's not more women movers out there
Yeah,
moving these couches and stuff for black tie. What's up with
yeah.
that? Oh,
You know what? You know, I tried to, you know, I went with like the attractive guy look, you know what I mean? The you know, real buff, like, you know, I don't know, like, you know, the some people might relate them to like they call us the Chippendale movers. No, not really. I don't want them to look like male strippers, but I do want them to have a certain image and be, you know, obviously fit to do the job and but yeah, if I could, I would have much rather hired, you know, 600 women to move furniture than men because we're you know we're boneheads us guys and I think it'd be a whole lot easier, you know,
it'd
managing.
be more fair too,
Yeah, you know,
yeah,
would be fair. We've had some women movers.
yeah.
There's some, yeah, that would outwork grown men, dude.
Hey, I'm all for equal opportunity,
Yeah,
actually. If a man can do as good of a job as a
yeah,
woman can
for
do as
sure.
good of a job as a man,
Yeah,
they should have the equal chance to get
yeah,
whatever position.
yeah. And as
I
a
just think you're gonna
disclaimer, we do, you know, offer, but it's just, I mean, no women are signing up to, not no women, very few women are signing up to
sure.
do hard manual labor like that, you
Yeah.
know, because hell, the men aren't even signing up to do it.
Well, because you have the men that are,
Yeah, the
acting
men.
more like the men these days.
Yeah.
Talk about before we close this out. You're close to a record deal. I don't know what you can and can't say, so
Yeah.
I'll let you kind of break that down.
Cool. So yeah, uh so on October 13th, I put up my first single, and I've been independent with a distribution deal with a label named Average Joe's here in town. Um, Colt Ford and a couple of those guys that are dear friends of mine. You know, I've worked with and love those guys so much, and am very grateful for you know, all the mentorship and help that they've provided me. I mean, Colt and Noah Gordon over there that's, you know, produced, you know, my most of my songs to this point. You know, I, again kind of comes down to I think, you know, relationships, man, and you know, Barry Williams, who is Jason Aldean's daddy, uh introduced me to a man that I mean, we might say one of the most successful people in over the last, definitely on the business side, on the label side, over the last 30 years in country music. Um, I would definitely say he's in the top two or three. And we had lunch, and you know, I really never planned on signing like a big record deal and going to radio. I was just doing what I loved, um, and having fun doing it, man. Honestly, I never there was no expectations. I just wanted to do it because I loved it, right? And and so this opportunity came along, and we've sat down and we have shaken hands, and the paperwork's at the attorney's office, so I can't tell you who it is or you know exactly when it's going to happen. Hopefully, it's done by the time this comes out. But yeah, we've gotten a major record deal offer and management offer that we hope to finalize this week, actually, and hopefully radio tour within the next, you know, 6 to 9 months. So yeah, it's literally a dream come true, man. Like if you'd have told me that at 40 years old I would sign, you know, my first record deal after, I just feel like this is it's kind of a wild ride. But man, I'm telling you, if to anybody out there listening, like, I think, something happened right after my father passed away, and I was kind of questioning myself, like what made me happy, right? Like, because um, I was very close with him, and and through that, at the same time, my oldest daughter, was trying out for like a super competitive dance company here in town, and um, she came home from like the tryouts, and she was like, "Daddy, I'm not good enough, and I want to go back to the old company that wasn't near as competitive or whatever."
Mhm.
And it's when your child comes up to you, kind of has that has those doubts in their mind, right? It's our job to, my first instinct is, babe, you can do whatever you want to in this life. You got to believe in yourself, and
Sure.
you encourage them, and just give them words of encouragement, and try to eliminate their fears that are taking over in their mind, right? And creating that mindset that is kind of their limiting beliefs, right? Or that's creating those limiting beliefs. So I go and I mean, I just like drill into her, right? She goes back, the next day, and she didn't want to go back for the second day of tryouts. So she went back, and anyway, she ended up making the team. And the next day after, because this happened like as I was putting her to bed, one night. The next morning, I kind of, was in the middle. I've just kind of written some songs, and I just recorded one. And I was like, yeah, probably should, like, nobody needs to hear this. Like, probably nobody ever will hear this. I'm not going to put this out or send it to anybody. Um, I kind of looked in the mirror, and I'm like, wow, who are you to sit there and tell your daughter all of these things and not live it at the same time
Hmm.
for yourself? And kind of just put things in perspective for me. And, if it was something that made me happy, and something that I was going to put my time and effort into, then by God, I'm going to do it at the fullest, right? Like, we're not going to half ass anything, right? We're going to put our whole minds and hearts into it, and try to do it at the highest level, right? Um, so we took a stab at it, and I didn't know if one person, or a million people were ever going to hear it. But I think that it really is something that honestly has gotten me through some of the toughest times in my life. And I don't know how long this ride's going to last, and I don't know how big it'll ever be. Um, but as long as I'm doing it for the right reason and inspiring my kids that they can be anything and everything that they want to be in this life,
Sure.
is a reason enough for me to keep going. You know what I mean? And to not let up. And I didn't imagine these opportunities that are coming to me, they're like at my fingertips right now, would really ever be there. But now that they are here, I kind of feel like a duty, like God wouldn't have brought me this far, right? To stop now.
Sure.
Um, and I'd be lying if I sit here and told you that I haven't questioned doing it at all, because of the sacrifices that it's gonna take. I mean, I took, my ex-wife to coffee, um, right after kind of I got caught wind, and told her about it. And, that's a conversation I had to have with my children, and my ex-wife, who's my co-parent and mother of my children. Um, you know, because without their happiness, and without making it work on that end, I would never be happy, achieving that goal, right? And
Mhm.
I wasn't going to make the same, mistake twice. And so it's been a lot to think about, but at the same time, um, we've worked out a really good plan, and she's been super flexible with me, and supportive of it, and which I'm blessed for. And the kids just think it's the coolest thing in the world. So they love coming to shows, and and they like to sing and stuff like that too, and are kind of into music as well. So, um, yeah, man, it's a huge blessing. Hopefully it happens. And if it doesn't, then who cares? You know what I mean? I'll keep doing what I'm doing. And really, I don't think that I could be happier, whether I keep making music for me and my friends and maybe, the other folks that are out there listening to it, or if, I blow up and have a number one song on the radio. I don't think,
Yeah.
you know, um, that's not why I'm doing it. But I'm not going to limit myself. If other people see potential in it going, to a bigger place, then, I'm here for it. And there's not going to be anybody that is more, grateful for it or that works harder, to get there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I always thought you had a good chance of, getting a record deal, and you you understand the business, you understand building relationships, you're really smart, and,
Thank you, brother.
you got good music, so
Thank you, man.
it's a good combination, and, if you use that, uh, you know, you got a good chance, so
Thank you, man.
I'm
I
guessing you're
appreciate
gonna
it.
get the record deal, and, I hope that you do,
Yeah,
and
hopefully.
if you don't, maybe you'll get another one, who
Yeah,
knows?
okay, like I said.
I mean, there's plenty of you're so you're 3 years into your music
Yeah,
career, it normally takes 10 in
correct. Yeah,
Nashville,
I've still
so
got a long way to go.
you've time collapsed it, and,
Well,
but I think that has to do with your experience. You have experience in, you're already successful, and a lot of guys that are going into music, they're great musicians, but they don't have that experience, and they're in
yeah,
the
or the
jour
work ethic. I
or
mean,
the work ethic.
quite
Yeah,
frankly, I mean, you can be
that's another
super
one.
talented. We've talked about, hard work beats talent,
Oh, yeah.
earlier, and that applies, to this industry as well. I'm very fortunate to have just an amazing camp around me and amazing people around me, even if I don't sign this record deal, right?
Who are your mentors? You mentioned mentors,
Man, I think I've got a lot of mentors, man. I mean, I think that I've kind of lived my life, um, you know, looking up and at people that had more than me or were more successful than me or had better relationships than me, right? And I've always I truly believe that there's like we can learn something from every individual on this earth, if you look hard enough. Uh, but I've had my dad, my stepfather are huge mentors of mine in my life for different reasons, very different men but very intelligent and talented in their own ways. Um, there's a guy named Mike Reese and Jay Kinder that were my mentors when I was when I was just starting Black Tie. Um, and they helped start and we're at the very top of a little real estate company called EXP now,
mm,
which is obviously the largest in the world. They're my buddies that live down in Puerto Rico. Yeah,
okay.
so they were the most successful, people in the real estate game in Dallas, Texas at the time, and I was trying to like hunt down their business, and I ended up learning a lot more than real estate from these guys, man. They've just really kind of took me under their wing and they're amazing thought leaders and just always been believers in me, man. And I think that we always need those guys that are kind of like big brothers or, father figures or whatever. But I think that my mom also, is she was when it comes to hard work and fighting, for everything that you have in this life. There's nobody that's really, represented that more than her, So um I think, other than that, man, I think I surround myself with a lot of people, that my best of friends are probably my biggest mentors, man. Because I choose to surround myself with people that continue to push me. That true friend is not one that is gonna give you sit here and on the sidelines and be your cheerleader. A true friend's ones that's going to be your biggest critic and judge, most of the time, in the right ways, right? Not judgmental in a negative way, but they're going to be there to tell you, when you're wrong, when nobody else is willing to. Um, and they're going to be there to, pick you up when you fall down and brush you off and encourage you to, get back in the game or you know, or shake it off. You know what I mean? Um, but I think, it's so important to, surround yourself with people like that because obviously, we kind of become, a product of those relationships,
For sure.
whether it be a short term, in the short term and long term, right? Like, so, I think other than that, man, they're really got him Ryan Stewman. He's known as kind of like the hardcore closer. We kind of all came up together, man, and they're probably 5 years older than I am.
I think I've seen that guy online.
Yeah, probably. He's everywhere.
Gotcha.
He's a good dude, man. That's and I go back with these guys like 15 to 20 years. So
Nice.
it's cool to have those relationships to lean on. Whenever because hell, I certainly will never claim to know it all, and
Sure.
it's great to be able to go to your friends that are entrepreneurs that spend time with and have them jump in on the problems that you have in your business, as well. But
Yeah, that's awesome. Anything else you want to say in closing?
man, just thank you so much, dude. I mean, this guy over here, you make a huge impact on our community, man. And
Thank you.
you're always willing to stand up for the right thing, regardless if it's, the most popular opinion. And that's what I respect about you and will always respect about you. And just really, your generosity that you give, to those around you, man. You're a special dude, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that. Well, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you having me.